Hi, everybody in podcast land and also YouTube people. My name is James.
I'm David.
I'm Riley.
And this is the Carpool Critics Movie Podcast, where today we are discussing the Phantom Menace, Episode 1 of Star Wars.
The first Star Wars movie they ever made, right?
You will have already watched this movie. Can you do a mind trick in the past? Time travel?
Yeah, spoilers. We're spoiling
That's
the
a
crap out of
spoiler
it.
alert, yeah.
Yep.
And if you're on our convoy of listeners who watch movies ahead of time, next week we're doing the new musical from the creators of Hamilton. It's called In the Heights.
My name is Alexander in the Heights.
I have no idea what this is about.
Lin-Manuel Miranda also did some of the music for one of my favorite animated movies, Moana. Moana. Make way, make way.
Okay, cool. But today we're doing Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, all day. So, David, what are you giving this movie out of 10?
Its overbearing fan service, undefined characters, and convoluted plot far outweigh its plucky charm. The Phantom Menace crushes my soul every second of its fucking runtime.
No.
I renounce Star Wars! 0 to 10.
Whoa!
I'm done.
What a protest vote.
David.
Fine, 2 to 10.
That's what kind of episode it's going to be.
Holy. I mean, look, I knew that your rating was going to be under 5. I don't blame you for that. But like, man, the 0, that hurt. That hurt me in the pit of my soul.
So you prefer Army of the Dead. Nice. +1 for the good guys.
What did I give Army of the Dead?
You gave it a 2.5, upgraded to 4.5 or something?
3.5.
Oh, no. Okay, here's my slogan. Man, that last song when the Gungans and the Naboo are making peace. Total banger, dude.
It's a great
So good.
You're right. Just the soundtrack alone gives it a extra point.
6 out of 10 is what I'm giving it because I know it's really bad. But like, it's funny. I watched this movie and I'm like, I like this movie going in. I honestly thought this was my favorite of the sequels. And we'll get into this. The prequels, sorry. And we'll get into this, but this was like an interesting experience. Like, I was evaluating this movie critically for really the first time. Like sitting down and trying to watch it as a film and being like, what do I think about this? Detached from my Star Wars fandom. And my Star Wars fandom still came through. So I still enjoy the movie, but I recognize all of these horrible things about it and why it's a really bad movie, but it's very enjoyable to me. So I have to give it a 6 because it's bad, but it's on the like side of the 5 out of 10.
Well, I'm surprised that I'm giving it the highest rating.
What?
So the way my scale works is anything greater than anything that's a positive experience is a 5, and any movie that I would say, yeah, that's a pretty good movie, you should watch it, that I would recommend to people, that's about where 7 starts. I'm giving this movie a 6.9.
Okay.
Because I think that as a Star Wars movie, it would be a 7, where I'd be like, yeah, you should watch it. But I can't say that to the common person, because if you had never seen any Star Wars, and I recommend you watch this movie, they would just be like, what the hell is this?
See, that's such a funny thing. I mean, maybe we want to get into that, but the people who like this movie the most are people who, I think, this might not bear out statistically, but and from my subjective experience of like looking up who likes this movie and who doesn't like it, it seems like the people who actually like the movie are people who weren't Star Wars fans before the prequels.
Yeah, it's because they were too young.
Yeah,
they were too young.
For sure.
They were children.
Yeah. They were kids.
And so they didn't know any better.
And it's
then
a movie for kids.
It became nostalgic for them. That's what they enjoy is the nostalgia,
which brings
not the
me to
actual
my
movie.
slogan. That brings us to
we haven't heard your slogan
my slogan,
yet.
which is the Phantom Menace is like your first job. As a kid, it was awesome. Then you grew up and realized it sucked. But then you got 3 new, progressively fancier and more twisted jobs, and you realized that you'd give anything to go back to being a 9-year-old junkyard slave again.
Nice.
So the prequels sucked, but then when the sequels came out, you're like, wow, actually, they kind of had a little magic of their own that I kind of missed.
Totally. There's, like I said, my very cynical slogan, there's a plucky charm, and it's undeniable, I think, to all 3 of the prequels. And I think it's an authenticity that rings out. And
like a gravitas, a self-seriousness.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they made the prequels for the money. Like, obviously, that was a huge contributing factor, but it felt like there was a passion at the core of it that all of it is spinning out from. And I think that's, to me, the big difference is anything that's made more modern is going to feel corporate because it is corporate.
Right.
The tone was different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad because it is like horrible Disney sellout corporate nonsense. It's bad because George Lucas was allowed complete free reign with no moderation.
I'll take that though.
Yeah.
Honestly, I will take that over
for sure.
any more of what we're getting.
Yeah.
We'll discuss all the good and bad right after this message from our sponsor, Manscaped, and their Performance Package Kit, which comes with a ton of stuff, including their new lawnmower waterproof trimmer with advanced skin-safe technology, which helps reduce nicks and cuts. It also comes with their Crop Preserver ball deodorant. I've been known to use it. Their Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer, which I also benefit from, the shape of my nostrils, and their new Shears 2.0 luxury nail kit. Head to manscaped.com/carpool20 today and get 20% off plus free international shipping. Plus, you'll get the new Shed, or it's not new, it's the Shed travel bag that it all goes in. I really like that bag, and a pair of their anti-chafing boxer briefs, which my wife wears to bed. It's available for a limited time. Do it now. Carpool20.
Required uniform for Jedi.
You don't know what's under that robe.
Oh, Qui-Gon's definitely going commando. He's so at peace.
Pubes gone gin. We're also brought to you by Private Internet Access VPN. PIA helps you hide your true IP address so that you can bypass geo restrictions and censorship. You can connect up to 10 devices at the same time and includes an internet kill switch
Nice.
if your VPN gets disconnected involuntarily. PIA is available for Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and even as a Gungan Chrome extension, so check it out at lmg.gg/carpool.
You so wanted the PIA.
You should save the money. We are so secure.
Man, all the aliens are like coded ethnic in this.
Yeah, it's a little bit
Yeah.
uncomfortable in 2021.
Yeah.
Annie!
Yeah. Even on the IMDb trivia page, it's like, hey, the Trade Federation is based on like Chinese culture because of their like ruthless consumer, or
Yeah.
like their ruthless commerce and style. And I
Oh
was like,
wow! What?
ooh.
Who said that?
It was like on the IMDb trivia. I was like, whoa.
Oh, interesting.
Whoa.
I mean, I feel like their
It's not
accents,
racist. It makes sense. It's
Yeah,
totally.
like,
their
Whoa.
accents are more Japanese, but yeah.
I think they vary,
The
but they're
Gungans
yeah,
are
they're-
like. I mean, George Lucas has responded to this criticism, being like, "I don't understand how anyone could think that George
They're
Jar Jar is
aliens.
supposed to be Jamaican." Like, and people say that like the ears are dreadlocks and stuff.
I think that's probably too far.
He said,
but
obviously, I mean, I feel like I want to give him the benefit of the doubt
Yeah.
and say like that wasn't intentional. Like he's
Yeah.
not, but like,
I think it's one of those like deeply seated systematic racism kind of things where it's just like, yeah, well, this alien, they look different, so let's do a funny voice for them.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
alien that walks up and it's like, hey, Anakin, how are you doing?
Right.
There's no American aliens.
and
Can
I
you
imagine,
imagine?
like, I can't imagine that George Lucas came up with the dialect himself. Like, I feel like Ahmed Best, the actor, when you audition for these kind of roles where it's like, we want somebody really quirky and we want them to have a crazy voice and like, well, they're wacky. And actors will bring in their own stuff. Like when I get an audition for like some crazy character, I have to come up with a silly, stupid voice.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's not George Lucas being like, he should be Jamaican.
Do you know who really wanted to be the voice of Jar Jar Binks?
Oh, hold on. Let's just have fun with this before you tell me.
Who wanted
Will
to be
Smith,
Nope.
John Voight.
Nope.
Wanda Sykes.
Way weirder.
Carrot Top.
Way worse.
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey.
Right
Who
line.
wanted to
Whoa.
be really?
Michael Jackson?
Yep. Michael
Oh,
Jackson.
what the hell? You said yes. Okay, let's riff on that for a
Oh
second.
my. Okay, no, I don't want to spend too much time on this. We got to get into the meat here, guys.
Yeah.
Anakin, wait.
Look at me, I'm throwing a pile.
We is going home.
Is there room for two in that pod racer?
Oh no. Okay, stop. All right. Hey, how about we remind people what happened in this movie? Stop it. Stop laughing. It's not funny. Okay.
Funny.
Here's what episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Weird title, but the Trade Federation has blockaded the peaceful planet of Naboo. Calm down. So the Galactic Republic sends Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi to negotiate. But the Sith Lord Darth Sidious orders the Trade Federation to kill the Jedi and invade the planet with a droid army. The Jedi escape, land on Naboo, and in the process save the Gungan outcast Jar Jar Binks. Indebted to the Jedi, Jar Jar leads them to his people who provide them with the transport to travel through the planet Gore to the planet's capital, where they rescue Queen Padme Amidala and narrowly escape the planet in her royal starship. But it's damaged, forcing them to land on the remote desert planet of Tatooine for repairs. There, they meet junk dealer Watto and his 9-year-old slave, Anakin Skywalker. Qui-Gon becomes convinced that Anakin is the prophesied chosen one, which is more or less confirmed when a blood sample reveals his midichlorian count is off the charts! Most exciting part of the movie! After Qui-Gon sets up a complicated wager with Watto, Anakin wins the required ship parts and his own freedom in a pod race. He joins the Jedi, leaving his mother behind in slavery. I got feelings about that. The group leaves the planet after Qui-Gon fends off an attack from Sidious's apprentice, Darth Maul. They arrive at Coruscant, the Republic's capital, where the Jedi Council refuses to train Anakin. He's too old and dangerous for some reason. Meanwhile, Naboo's Senator Palpatine persuades Padme to call for a vote of no confidence in the Republic's chancellor, who refuses to send help to Naboo. Frustrated with bureaucracy, we've all been there, Padme and our heroes return to Naboo, where they convince the reclusive Gungans to help fight the Trade Federation's droid army. During the battle, Anakin hides in a starfighter but triggers its autopilot, flying into space and inadvertently destroying the droid control ship, while Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fight Darth Maul, who's trying to capture Padme, I think. Obi-Wan eventually slices Maul in half, but Qui-Gon is mortally wounded and asks Obi-Wan to train Anakin before dying in his arms. Palpatine is elected Chancellor, Yoda promotes Obi-Wan to Jedi Knight, and reluctantly allows him to train Anakin. The movie ends with Padme presenting a science fair Tesla ball to the Gungans to represent peace!
Tesla ball?
Tesla ball.
Vannegraph generator?
Is that what it's called?
Thing where you touch it and it zaps like
Yeah,
where
I
your
call it
finger
a
is?
Tesla ball.
No. Tesla coil's a thing.
Yep.
You ever play
Similar.
Red Alert?
It is, and so is a Tesla ball.
All right.
You see what the tanks in Red Alert have the Tesla balls on top.
They're the coolest.
They're
And,
the coolest.
Where do you want to start, boyos?
Oh,
Boyos.
Who's the protagonist?
okay, that's a good place to start.
Oh, boy.
There is none.
Wait,
No, I have a theory about this.
Wait, we got to start with the good stuff.
There is no good stuff.
There is
I
good
gave
stuff.
it a 0.
Let me tell you.
Riley.
Well,
I guess Riley's
let
starting
me tell
this.
you why you're wrong for that. The production design, okay? The one
Oh.
thing that Star Wars will always get right, or seems to, sequels excluded, is the production design. They come up with these like super cool looking ships, and yeah, all the planets are like single biomes, but
Sure.
it's kind of a cool idea. And I like this one particularly because something that was so characteristic of the original Star Wars movies was the fact that like it's this futuristic sci-fi thing, but everything looks really dirty and gritty and lived in and used. And so George Lucas was specific about wanting everything in the prequels to look kind of shiny. It's like the golden age of Star Wars. So particularly we get like Amidala's ship, which is just this like completely
Chrome,
unbroken,
yeah.
chrome ship.
Yeah, the Naboo.
We see
Starfighters
Coruscant.
as well.
We see Coruscant for the first time in the Star Wars franchise.
Oh, is that only made reference to in the previous movies?
They don't even reference it in the original trilogy, but we had like seen it referenced in the books and stuff in comic books. So we see that for the first time. It's like a city planet. It's crazy.
Yeah, conceptually, it's just weird. You just start imagining what it would be like to live there. Like, would you?
Yeah.
It's so huge and dense. Like the buildings are just so tall. Would you ever really have to even leave a sphere of your own building and like maybe your next door neighbor?
Well, yeah, and there are various like novels and books that explore what life is like on Coruscant, and there's like it's not only that the entire city is covered or the entire planet is covered in a city. There's like you can go deep, like it's kilometers deep as
God.
well. So there's like entire separate societies that like there's the underbelly of Coruscant. and
got to be
there's-
completely stratified.
Yeah, it's a super cool place to explore, and they were going to explore it in the what was it going to be called? Duel of the Fates, the original Episode 9 script.
Oh, yeah.
Finn and Rose were going to go to Coruscant and start an uprising with like all of the lower class people on Coruscant and like fight back against the First Order, and there was going to be this like cool like
Man,
That would have been
a former stormtrooper leading the resistance.
That would have been so
imaginary-
silly. It's so much better that I went to a casino planet instead.
The imaginary Star Wars that lives in our head is incredible.
Yep. And that, I mean, yeah, we'll get to that because like another cool thing about this movie and about Star Wars in general is like the fact that George Lucas, it's an unfortunate thing that he created this really, really, really cool world, and it's got lightsabers and hyperspace and spaceships and blah blah and different aliens and it's a really cool playground, but the guy that created it just
Touches kids.
is what?
Whoa.
Well, yeah, I mean
What?
the playground metaphor.
Oh, okay. Well, let's not go with that. Let's go
All right.
with what I was gonna say, which is that the guy that created it is just kind of incompetent. Like he's an ideas man. The original trilogy was so good because he had these other people involved.
It's like a slide where the seams between the different pieces of the slide are like kind of cut you and
Yeah.
Well, he had created a position for himself where he didn't have to make that kind of creative decision for decades, and then all of a sudden he inserted himself into a position where all he was making is creative decisions, where he has so much power and no one could say no.
Yeah.
And it was inevitable. Like no human being could do what George Lucas did and not be make what he made this trash
Right.
fire.
Have
Right.
you guys seen that footage of him like doing a screening with who I don't know who it was, like a producer or one of his buddies? They do a screening, and then everyone's just silent after, and he's
Yeah.
like, "I may have gone too far with this one."
yeah. Man, that document, I want to watch the whole thing, but like
So
it's almost
good.
too painful. It's almost like the process of doing research and like looking into stuff for this podcast, I was almost like, I don't want to go too deep. Like I don't want to spend more time on this than I have to, because it's kind of painful.
Yeah.
It's
really
Let's stick
painful.
on production design, and we have to talk about Queen Amidala. I remember
Yeah.
when the movie came out, there seemed to be, it was almost like a phenom or a craze with like, she looked so wacky.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was just, no one had seen hair and makeup like that before. It was
Right.
iconic, instantly iconic. And to the point about world building, it really, to me, it just makes you think of, okay, this is an entire society with histories and norms and a culture that it isn't even hinted at in the movie. They don't even acknowledge it. It's just like, yeah, she's an alien, and that's what she looks like. And she has all these different costumes, which are all equally stunning and amazing, and all so different. You're just like, I don't understand fashion on your planet, but I believe it has rules.
yeah. Well, it's not fashion per se. It's like her royal stuff, I guess.
Attire, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, normal. This is one of the bad things about the movie. We never see like the normal Naboo people. Like we see the Gungans, I guess. Oh no, in the end scene, I
soldiers,
guess you see
yeah.
a few of them, but
But they're all the volunteer soldiers.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But the other great thing, obviously, is the music.
yes.
John Williams
Nailed
cannot
it.
do wrong
No.
in my eyes or in my
He's
ears.
honestly really, really responsible for a lot of the good beats in this movie.
For sure.
A lot of this movie is boring, but then when you get into the second half and it starts kind of culminating in a climax, that's where it goes for me from like a 4.5 or a 5 up to this like 6.9.
Yeah.
Because it really actually, a lot of payoffs kind of happen at once, and you feel feelings, and it's in large part because of his
Yeah.
music.
I don't know about the existence of payoffs in this movie or whether they exist or not, but I will say that the end, especially with the duel between
when it's intercutting the duel and the
Yeah.
other scenes with the
Yeah.
royalty.
I mean,
Another
I,
instantly iconic thing is that tune, Duel of Fates,
Oh,
is instantly iconic.
Oh, so good. And they bring it back in Revenge of the Sith, but maybe we'll get to that eventually. Again, so the music's great. We don't need to talk about that for a super long time, but obviously, I think if the music was not as good as it is, this movie would be a complete disaster. The lightsaber choreography. So what I really like, if you like the original trilogy, sort of like more swordy fighting with the lightsabers, yes, this will like rub you the wrong way. But I think that it was super cool after seeing Return of the Jedi and like the original trilogy with their more sword based stuff. Again, just like with the ship design and stuff, the lightsaber fights in the prequels were designed to kind of be this like golden age. So like there are lots of Jedi around. They are really, really, really competent fighters. These are people at the top of their game, and they like lightsaber fighting is more like a dance than a sort of hacking at each other. And it's kind of a bit of a fourth wall breaking thing where when I watch the original trilogies now, I'm like, these, like I have to suspend my disbelief more than normal because I'm like, they weren't really thinking about the fact that the lightsaber is a weightless weapon. Like you only feel the weight of the hilt.
Mm-hmm.
So in the prequels, we get these super cool lightsaber fights where they're flipping them around like crazy and stuff. It's because that would make sense. It's not, there's no weight to it. So particularly the end, the end fight scene where, particularly in the end where Obi-Wan's fighting Maul and he's like angry about it. That just still gives me chills, even though the emotional, like it's also because that's one of the very few moments in the entire movie where a character displays some sort of emotion and you feel it. And I want him to win this fight really badly. But
I feel like they hit the sweet spot in this episode with the duels because, like you said, they're a lot more subdued.
Yes.
In the older or the original trilogy, and then but even by episode 2, they're over the top. You're like, oh my god, Yoda's doing almost like flying through the air, and like it's just too flippy
For sure.
And there's people dual wielding and crap, and it's just over the top. But in this one, it seems like there's not a lot of. Well, there's obviously lots of special effects, but it just seems like, an actor actually did that.
Yeah, I think that when I remember the prequels, before we decided to start doing this, and I think in the last episode, you were like, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? And I said Return of the Jedi. But like, we'll get to that, David. Just calm down. All right. When I think of the prequels, when I imagine the prequels, when I think about Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, I think of A, Hayden Christensen's bad acting, and B, way too much special effects, I'm thinking of like the giant Geonosis clones versus droid battle, and it's just all CG and it's not very good. And so in this one, I'm imagining like there's a bit more practical effects. The CG, there are definitely parts where the CG is not great. And watching it, in 4K on my TV this time, I was like, oh, wow, I can see that. But there are also times where the CG looks really good.
Yes.
And so this movie seems a bit closer to the originals in terms of overall tone than the subsequent prequels.
I want to come back to that lightsaber battle because I want to tear it apart because it's actually garbage.
Okay, fine.
But we'll come back to it.
I praised it enough.
Yeah, but I totally agree. I think that this movie nails, I think, the sweet spot of...
you have to say one nice thing. This is good.
Yeah, no, exactly. There is nice things. I'm being a little bit spicy with a 0. It's really a 3 for me.
Okay.
But this movie shows restraint in where it uses CG and how they enhance it. Like most of the sets that are like built sets, they're just built to head level and then they CG on top.
Yeah.
And like that was a great technique because it's seamless. You don't really notice. And then the CG sets they build are pretty spectacular. Like the Gungan city looks phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
That night shot of the Tatooine kind of like suburb or whatever, like the slave camp. I'm not sure what it is, but looks great too. And it's just like it captures your imagination, and they translated the concept artists' work phenomenally.
Right.
And I think that's one of the biggest strengths of the movie for sure.
Totally. Oh man, I also wanted to say that the pod racing. Pod racing is probably the coolest thing to come out of this movie. Like the coolest new thing that was like created in this movie is pod racing for me.
It's hard. Okay, maybe we can get into it a little bit. I think I agree. When I started the pod race, I wrote down, I'm like, oh, pod race is still fire. Like top 10 Star Wars sequences maybe. And I wrote that before, and then I watched it, and I realized how far disconnected any emotion is from anything that's going on. And the movie absolutely fails to tie a character's journey to like the action that's going on. And you're like the special effects are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Like they hold up almost 100% today, like totally mind blowing. But they're like all the little obstacles Annie faces. Like the only emotion you feel is these cutaways to people reacting to a little screen and like.
And his mom's reactions aren't even strong.
No, they're not strong. And his face is like what a 10-year-old thinks stress looks like. Like they like grimace, like yeah. And like for me, the big moment that started in the pod race that was such a disappointment is when one of the two pods disconnects and there's like the hangling dangle.
Yeah.
The hangling dangle.
The hangling dangle.
I got it right.
That's a pub we're going to this weekend.
And like in the movie, he does like
the
flips,
hangling dangle.
But like in the shot, he's just flipping around and like going, and then he just like grabs a thing and then like hits it, pulls it, and it's like
he's got that tool.
He just like the obstacle is presented. He doesn't really suffer from it, and then he fixes it.
Yeah.
And like they needed to know how to pull out those moments, kind of slow down time and the reality where he's like really struggling. He's like gonna die. He's gonna lose. And like this is Star Wars. He has the fucking Force, man. Like why does he have a tool? Like he should be able to like that should be a moment where he's connecting with it. He's got the highest midichlorian count of anyone in history.
I agree with this.
Like, it should be like an emotional overcoming, not just like. Whoop! From my bag of tricks, here's a tool.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Like obviously, I don't think he should put his hand out and just
not quite like that.
I don't know. I said no initially, but now I'm like that. I think it should.
No, I think it's something in between where it's like Luke using the Force to aim. Right?
Yeah.
He's like he focuses and then he can do something that a normal person wouldn't be able to do.
And I think it's established that he can only pod race because he's Force sensitive.
Yeah.
So that's there. But like, I honestly think it would. One complaint that I have about the prequels in general is that. We don't really see how he's more powerful than other Jedi.
Yeah.
So that would have been cool to kind of be have him like
totally.
He barely manages to get it.
Yeah. And it could be almost like ambiguous as to whether it was the Force or if it was just like kind of lucky and it got in his hand or something. Like you could kind of play with that because he shouldn't be overpowered.
A good director would be able to do something
totally.
like that.
And I think that comes around to, I think the absolute fundamental problem with this movie is that like George Lucas has a fundamental like misunderstanding of what emotional beats are. He doesn't understand what emotional beats are. He understands like structure kind of and like where we're going and like scenes, I guess, but he doesn't understand like how to like hit the point and like pull the drama out of that moment. There's no moment in this movie where it's like, oh, something just happened and it's like, oh God, like what are we gonna do about it? It's like changed the scene. It's just like people talking to each other.
So I wanna funnel this into talking about the movie as a whole and what. Like now we're gonna talk about the problems, okay? So what?
Like you're talking plot.
We're talking plot.
Yeah.
Okay, what's like the biggest issue?
I have a unified theory.
Yeah, give it to us.
So there's a lot of people there's been lots of reviews before us on this, and one of the major things is like there's no protagonist. The closest thing really to a protagonist is Qui-Gon, I think, because he gets a lot of screen time and he's he's pretty active.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Obi-Wan, who really should be the protagonist, I
100%.
think.
In the one of the original drafts, he was. There was no Qui-Gon. It was
He
Obi-Wan.
just sits in the ship,
Yeah.
man. It's like
Yeah.
brutal. But to me, what I think really is going on is that the protagonist is Palpatine, but they wanted it to be a twist where they reveal it. They wanted it to be the Phantom Menace. So actually, we're living in the shadow of this story that's about Palpatine. You guys know? Are you familiar with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead? You know what that is?
I've heard it.
Those two characters are like side characters. They're like messengers in Hamlet. And there's a play that is, what if all the events, all those huge, like very important events in Hamlet were actually just consequences of the hijinks of these two side characters? And there actually is a Star Wars like version of that, but that's beside the point. But it's like we're watching Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, where what we want to be watching is like we're watching a movie that's really about Palpatine, masterminding all his rise to power. But because they're trying to make that a secret twist, all we get to see is like, oh, there's a weird trade dispute, and
But like, it's such a weird, like, total miss on the twist, because like I remember very specifically in 1999 seeing it in theaters and like totally being like, the guy in the hood and this senator are the exact same
this
person.
is a question
There's
I actually
zero
have for you guys.
ambiguity.
Is that is it true that audience walking in knew, like, Palpatine is not named in the previous movies, right? It's like, we only know
he's just
Darth
the
Sidious.
Emperor. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
You don't even hear Darth Sidious. He's just the Emperor.
right.
Yeah.
So in this one, was there audience superiority where we were like, clearly Palpatine is the Emperor, or was that a twist that was revealed?
For Star Wars fans, they 100% knew because there were books and stuff, and he was named Palpatine and all that. But I think to, I don't know, to someone who's completely new, I feel like it wouldn't be completely obvious.
But I
because
mean,
we don't see Senator Palpatine that often. He's really a minor character in this.
I'm just telling you my specific experience in 1999, going to Edmonton, going to the Cineplex, and like I was the age where
You were a baby, man.
I was the age where the like King Kong floating from the ceiling, the UFO, amazed
that
me.
theater, that was West End Mall Theater.
Yeah.
I used to work there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was the age where that like blew my mind. I was like, this is incredible. I'm entering a fantasy
Wait, you
world.
guys lived in Edmonton?
I've had family in Edmonton.
That theater has a dragon that blows fire every 15 minutes.
Dude, I didn't grow up in Edmonton, but I was born in Edmonton, and we went back there almost every year just to hang out with relatives and stuff. I remember that.
Yeah.
Wow, shared experience.
That's so
But
weird.
I remember very specifically leaving that movie theater, or like watching the movie and being like I just was like, there was no question it was the same person.
Wait. Are you telling me that you watched this movie as a child and you didn't like it?
No, I did. I was like, it's okay. Yeah.
Shut up.
I did not like love it. No.
What do you mean?
It's boring as hell.
It's
You
boring.
probably liked the pod racing.
It's long.
And the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I love this movie.
Everyone's like, yeah, it's for kids. It's like, no, kids don't like this movie. It's not that good. It's not fun.
Kids kind of zone in and out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's- That's fair.
I don't know if that's
just
fair.
parts.
Like,
Are you kidding me, Riley?
Dude.
I'm not even interested in this movie. Dude, the opening crawl, I wrote this down. It's almost comical.
Yeah.
It's almost comical.
No.
The opening crawl
Yeah,
comes
but
up on the
kids
screen.
aren't reading the opening crawl anyways.
I know, but
We must blockade the trade.
it just says everything.
100%. It's so
have to-
dumb that it
yeah.
starts off
The
with
second-
trade
But that's,
routes
like,
are in
huge
dispute.
part of
Guys,
it, and,
I
like-
got it. The second sentence of it, it's like, it says something like the galaxy's in chaos. You're like, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. And then the very second sentence is, the taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. Holy shit.
It's so bad.
No.
Yeah.
And the reason is, this is my unified theory, is like, really what this movie is about is like, I was going to say an episode, but maybe a whole season of House of Cards compressed into a movie. But instead of the camera being on Palpatine, watching him do all these cool moves, it's on Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, the Jedi.
Yeah.
And they're just like reacting to these things that the
Yeah.
main
I think-
character is doing. And we
I-
never get to meet the main character.
I totally think that you're right in the sense that the movie would be 1,000,000 times better if it focused on Palpatine. If this was like the Palpatine origin movie and it was kind of all three movie condensed and it was his perspective through it,
Yeah.
it would work. But I don't think that's what they were going for.
No,
I don't
it
think.
needed to be the story of Anakin.
Yeah, and I think that's what they were trying to do, is tie it together as a Skywalker thing.
Yeah.
And I think it was a huge mistake to draw it out into a trilogy, because like child Anakin and like teenager Anakin are just different people to me. Like I don't connect them at all.
Totally.
so
yeah.
you think that he should not have entered the story as a child?
No, it should have just been one movie, and they condensed 2 and 3
So
together.
originally he was supposed to be 12, which I guess isn't
He's-
that
he's
different.
9,
He's
right?
9 in this
Yeah.
one.
I know that from the Weird Al song.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, I had to look it up because I was like, they're laying the groundwork in this movie for the romantic relationship between him and Padme.
it's weird in
and
this
I'm
one.
like, this is so weird because I assume just Padme was like maybe 16 or something. 'Cause
14.
She's a queen, yeah. So she's 14 in this one, and he's 9. So like, I'm like, oh, okay, that's 5 years. That's not like the worst thing once they grow up, you know, like once. But I forget how old they are in the later movies. But I'm like, it's a bit weird for them to kind of like have them have this like close relationship, knowing that later they're gonna get together.
Yeah.
So-
It didn't really bother me this time until the last look. There was like a look she gives Anakin at the end, and it's kind of like sultry, and she's holding the Tesla ball, and she's like, and I'm like, because the rest of the movie is totally, you get the sense it's very innocent. He's just like, wow, you're an angel, and she's
right.
like, oh.
Well, there's that one scene though. He's talking about how he feels about her, and she's like, "Oh, I feel that way about you too." And then he's like,
Oh,
"Only
yeah.
I ... and she goes, "Miss your mother." And he's like, "No, actually, I was gonna say have a little kid boner for you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's weird because she says, you know, even if we don't see each other, I'll still care for you. And he's like, I care for you too, only. And I was like, it's just kind of weird, like having these people say, I care for you. But I guess, I don't know, like if you kind of interpret it as like a sister-brother relationship, I'm like, okay, that's fine.
but then
but if you kind of like,
no, I agree.
just in this movie alone,
Totally.
it's all right.
Yeah,
I don't know,
sure,
but
sure.
it just feels weird. I mean, like, I wish that they would just make him a bit older.
Yeah.
Have him be 12, and then it's less weird.
Yeah, 12 to 14 is
You know?
totally.
Yeah.
So I could see where they're coming from because they couldn't make it him the protagonist because they wanted to have all this fan service, like you said, in world building where you've got these Jedi.
Right.
And these Jedi are kicking ass. And within the first couple of minutes of the movie, we get name drop of Yoda and we get to see force pushes and shit.
Yeah.
And they want to have that. And if they started with Anakin being the protagonist, you just wouldn't get that for a long time. You wouldn't have the context of like, why are the Jedi picking him up?
Yeah.
So they
100%.
kind of had to start not with Anakin, I guess.
And this is something that I also wanted to say in the good part was the opening with the 2 Jedi. I thought it's just like such a cool introduction to the world of the prequels after the original trilogy where the Jedi were just a legend and Luke is like stumbling his way around trying to figure out what it means to be a Jedi and Yoda's telling him this and he's like, that doesn't make any friggin' sense, and he has to like go fight his own father. It's so confusing and traumatic.
And then in this one, you're like, whoa, imagine being the ambassadors of the Supreme Chancellor to disrupt this trade blockade.
Okay, so there's that. But they get there and you're like, ooh, okay, these Jedis, they seem capable. They're mysterious. They got their robes. Oh, they're trying, people try to gas them and they like can suck in air and hold their breath because the Force. And they get out there and kill a bunch of things. And like, oh, droidicas, we're in trouble.
Wait, is that
Force
the Force?
speed.
I thought it was just like a self-disciplined thing. They have forced lungs.
Oh, I thought
No,
they just
they
got
can-
the hell out of there.
No. The Force can be used to enhance basically any natural human ability. So I'm assuming that there's like something where they have like trained their body with the Force to like hold their breath
Some
for a
level
long
of
time.
discipline.
Oh, I thought
I
they
love
just got
that.
the hell out of
I
there.
So,
love
like,
that
you
in
know-
this
but
movie.
wait,
We're talking
wait.
about force speed. I gotta get it out.
Okay.
They show that they have force speed, that they can move really fast.
Yeah.
And many times later in the movie, it'd be very practical to move very fast, including when Qui-Gon and Darth Maul are fighting and Obi-Wan's at the other side of a long alleyway. What's
That's a big
going
plot hole.
on? What's going on?
And what's worse about that is that they could easily have him use force speed, but still be unable to get to him. Just show him using the force speed, but he's just not fast enough.
This is actually, I have a list of questions, and this is one of them. You kind of answered it. There's that shot right before, or I guess right after the droidicas.
droidicas.
Okay, I don't know if I'm saying it the way that a non-Newt gunman would say it.
Newt Gunray?
Or yeah, gunman.
It's droid EKA, droidica.
Oh, okay, because he says it with his accent.
Yeah, it
His
sounds
race-
like droidical or something.
Anyways, when those rolly ones come up, and then there's an explosion, and you see the Jedi just like fly out of the screen, I'm like, are they getting blasted away? What is this blur?
I wonder if it's like a added and post thing where they had like a different resolution, but they're like, this is taking too long. We're just gonna like
maybe.
CG just like. Whoop.
I don't remember it when I watched it in like not this time.
I just think
really?
that's like
It's
there's
always
so
been in
many-
there?
There's so many
Yeah.
force powers, and I just like it's just great to see more of them being used in this one because like we see Luke do a force jump, and we see him grab stuff, and we see force lightning, and but like in this one we're just like our knowledge of what the force is and what it can be used for is just expanded, and it's just really cool to see because there are also powers that like make total sense. Like why wouldn't they be able to run fast? You know.
They just blur and then they're way down the hallway, and I
Right.
don't know how they get coordinated that they're both gonna do that at the same time. But Cool.
The Force.
They're in sync, dude. It's a master and his Padawan.
Every plot hole in Star Wars is just the Force.
It's the Force.
It's just
No,
the Force.
they've trained together. They've
The
been on
Force.
missions. Anyways,
Yeah, they're
so
communicating.
let's go back to what we were talking about before that,
Yeah,
where like we're introduced with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and we're like, okay, who are these characters? The trade disputes and stuff. Why were we talking about that?
Well, because from my point of view, they reverse engineered the script they wanted. Instead of like writing
Right.
towards something they wanted to see, they like wrote away from something.
Yes.
Like they wanted, okay, we need to introduce this Anakin kid, and we need to have Palpatine's rise to power. So let's just work backwards from there.
yeah.
Instead of having like we have this cool this cool character we're gonna follow.
So like even pursuant to what you were saying about the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern thing, I watched a background lore type of video about the economic situation before like leading up to Phantom Menace, and it actually is like super complicated, and there are like actual
Sure
economic
there is.
like
Yeah.
they laid this groundwork in the lore. I don't know whether they did it before or after, but like there's this whole friggin' thing about the galaxy being distributed into these different economic and trade zones, and like routes are being taxed, and so the Trade Federation is like space Comcast, and they're like taking advantage of these free trade zones, and like there's a whole
Yeah,
thing.
there's economic exclusion zones. I watched that as well.
There's a whole thing, and it's like what we're seeing is just like a small slice of that. And I think maybe to George Lucas, he's like, yeah, so this is what's happening with the Republic and blah blah blah, and maybe thought people would just be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But in a kids movie, it's just completely out of place.
And we're gonna talk about Clone Wars later.
Yeah.
But if it's not in the movie, it's not in the movie. And you can't be like, well, if you read like 16 books, you would understand. Oh, if you watch like 30 hours of TV, you would understand. It's like, no, if it's not in the movie, it's not in the movie.
It's also just a bad decision because, I mean, maybe George Lucas geeks out on economics and politics, but like whenever your plot hinges on like a Senate and like basically there's a parliament and there's a chancellor and a viceroy and stuff, and it's just like,
Well, it's so honestly, I get it because I think world building is probably the most fun part of writing. Like when I work on a script or something, I love the like before writing and coming up with the ideas and how it all works and like coming up with those intricacies because there's no danger to it. There's no like translating from your mind to the paper. It's just kind of loose and you can kind of have it be whatever you want, just like the fun part of it.
Yeah.
So I get why he focuses on that. I get why that really matters to him because like that's the joy of fucking world building, man. But
And that's what he's good at.
he's really good at it.
Yeah.
but that's not what Star Wars is.
No.
So it's like, if he's like, cool, I'm going to make the prequels and they are going to be House of Cards.
Yeah.
They are going to be House of Cards. The whole trilogy is just going to be like a political, like
Political
stab
thriller.
in the back kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. But then that's not what Star Wars is. Even the Star Wars he made is not that.
So, like-
Star Wars is the Jedi ripping around, like shooting droids and crap. So
But like you were saying, the idea of it's not just the story of Anakin Skywalker, right? I feel like it would have been better if it was just the story of Anakin Skywalker, but it's also the story of Palpatine coming to power and how the Galactic Empire took over the galaxy. So I understand why George Lucas was like, we need to show the machinations of Palpatine and how this happened. He was trying to draw parallels to Nazi Germany, like it's down to the title of Chancellor and stuff, which Hitler took.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting from like a broad perspective if you just kind of look at it not as like a movie and more just kind of like a lore video. Like it's like if it was on the History Channel and we're learning about how the politics of the Republic worked and how Space Hitler took power. It's interesting from that perspective. But yeah, as a kids movie, no.
I wonder if he took it so personally that people would criticize the first ones for being so like loose. And it's like, what is an emperor? Like what is this politics system? And he was like, he took it and like stewed on it for like 30 years. And it's like, people didn't understand the politics of the original one. I'm going to make it so fucking political.
Okay, we've been talking a lot about like the background stuff. Let's talk about the actual film here as like a film, and I want to talk about Jar Jar. I walked into this thing being like, all right, everyone hates Jar Jar, but I didn't actually hate him until like halfway through the movie. For the first half of the movie, I'm like, oh, okay, this is like a fun, wacky, comic relief Star Wars character, he's like, you just saved my life. And he's like, what's wrong with you? What are you, brainless? And he's like, I spake. And he's like, the ability to speak does not make you intelligent. There's a few exchanges between them. Obi-Wan's like, and when they find us, they'll crush us, grind us into a million pieces, blast us into oblivion. And Jar Jar's like, oh. Like, there's some interesting kind of fun dynamics
I
there.
remember as a kid liking how wooed.
Yeah.
He says how wooed 3 times.
Yeah, I remember very
How
specifically
wooed.
with my friends.
My
saying,
God.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I'm okay with it at the beginning because he has utility at the beginning. He's like, I will take you to Gunga City.
Yeah.
But then there's a point where it's like they're on Tatooine and it's like, Obi-Wan, you stay in the ship. Me and Jar Jar are going to go explore. You're like,
what?
why
Gotta
did
be-
he ever leave the planet
Yeah.
with you?
We talk about, like, we're going to bring up stuff like this, and I want to say that's the dumbest part of the movie for me. One of the dumbest parts of the movie. But there are too many dumbest
Yeah.
parts of the movie that I can't even say that.
Yeah.
But yes, that is 100% so dumb that Obi-Wan, and again, we already talked about this, but we're connected to Obi-Wan. We know who Obi-Wan is. This should be the story heavily involving
should be
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan's
Who is
story.
his character? Who is he? We don't even know who he is in this movie because he doesn't have any characterization. Anyways, Jar Jar. I can understand why people hate him when they start doing these like unnecessary, ridiculous, over the top things.
Well, the final battle when he's like unable to like swing the balls, falls over, like smashes the droid down and it shoots.
But before that even happens,
Yeah.
there are just scenes where he's just something is happening and he's just being goofy and wacky in the background for no reason other than to be like, hey kids, look over here, boop-a-doop-a-doo.
And it's actually the opposite tone of what's going on in the movie.
Right.
There's
Qui-Gon is like in this like intense negotiation with Watto. He's trying to figure stuff out. He walks back in and Jar Jar's like juggling things in the background.
Yeah, there's like a slide whistle in Star Wars. You're like, what? It's like, no.
It blows me away to think that people on set were so pumped about Jar Jar. Like they thought he was going to be such a hit. They thought he was going to be like the biggest thing about the movie.
I honestly don't like if you see this. I haven't seen the whole documentary, but from the documentary as well, something that I've heard a lot of people say is that people on set and people in the creative process for these prequels were too scared to contradict George Lucas. Like George Lucas was like, oh, what if this happened? And what if he had a funny head? And what if he spoke like this and he dropped on his face and blah blah blah? And people were like, oh yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
He should step and poop right here.
Yeah, yeah, and people were too scared because he's George Lucas. He made Star Wars, and they were too scared because that's the other thing. George Lucas was funding this himself.
Yeah,
he personally financed the prequels. Or I know that he personally financed the second one. I didn't see a source for the first or third one.
But I mean, there's one. Then why was 20th Century Fox?
I think that there was like partnership.
Sure.
But I think a ton of the backing for this came from him personally.
I believe it because he was getting he gave up a salary so that he could maintain the like the toy rights and stuff.
Yeah. And so like there aren't people who can be like, no, George, this is we can't do this.
And you're not going to fight him that hard because you're like, whatever, it's his movie.
And the funny thing is that I don't want to bash George Lucas too hard because he wanted other people to direct this movie.
Yeah.
He asked like 5 or 6 other directors to direct, and they were all like, no, either because they had other projects or because they were like, that's too much pressure. And so he was like, all right, I'll direct it myself.
Yeah.
That was even happening for Return of the Jedi. He tried to get a bunch of different people to direct Return of the Jedi, and he got Marquand something. Forget what his name is, but he got some guy who hadn't done that much stuff to
Does
direct.
Kazdan for 5, right?
Did he direct it? I knew he wrote it, or did he?
I think Kazdan is the director of 5.
Anyways, I can't get on George Lucas's case too bad because he's a kid, you know. He's like a kid with cool ideas. He's drawing these cool pictures.
To hang out with Zack Snyder.
Yeah, he's a Zack Snyder. That's exactly what. Well, except he's better than Zack Snyder, in my opinion. Sorry, Zack.
I have a list of questions.
Okay.
You nerds just want to answer my questions?
Kirshner. Irving Kirshner. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, he did Empire?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't understand the communications trace thing. The Qui-Gon was like telling the Nabooians, do not stand to communications.
The Nabooians.
My woman's Gillette razor will give away my position.
They're like, if you do a communication, then our position will be given to the Sith. It'll be intercepted, right?
When was this? When they're on Tatooine?
Yes.
And he said, we can't send for help.
Because they got a hologram from the political-looking dude from Naboo being like, oh, they're killing us. People are dying. And then Obi-Wan was like, do not reply.
Right.
And then we do not see them reply. And yet, the next scenes are the Sith talking about how they know they're on Tatooine.
I thought they replied.
I wrote this down. So
no, they must have.
I missed that. I don't know. I feel like there were so many
And
plot
also,
holes that I couldn't.
If they have this hologram from this guy saying like, oh, they're killing us down here. If they have that hologram, how
James-
did they get it?
James, that's C.O. Bibble.
Okay, thank you. If Bibble is babbling via hologram, how did they receive that hologram without their position being known?
It could be something like he sent it to their email address over the HoloNet.
It uses proton mail.
They have the internet in Star Wars. It's called the HoloNet.
They don't.
Yeah, it's called the HoloNet.
They don't.
They do.
Then I'm so mad at why did the battle droids have to go like, hey, you battle droid, go do this? They go, Roger, Roger. Why don't they just like telepathically send it because they have the internet?
Yeah, well, that's a big problem for sure.
The droids are otherwise flawless enemies. Let's just talk about them for a second because it's quick.
Yeah, let's go.
They're the worst. Terrible design. They look like their look is okay.
I thought their look was cool.
But they are fundamentally not a threat and a big waste of my fucking time.
Right.
Like, why did
but they're made in China.
I will say.
I mean, if we're going with the whole thing that the Trade Federation it's a racist depiction of Asians.
Just like, why do they pose zero threat to the Jedi?
That's a problem.
Sucks.
For sure.
Sucks. And even when they escalate it in the second one with like the super battle droids that are thick boys, they present no challenge to the Jedi. And like, it just is such a bad, I don't think there's that many bad design choices in this universe, and that's a really bad design.
When they all unfold, and there's just so many of them, though, that's still very imposing. But the Jedi, the thing is, they're so powerful that even the droideka, it's like, oh, damn, these guys have shields, you can't bounce back. That's going to be really hard in the forthcoming video game, and it was. But why can't you just force push them?
Yeah.
Tip them over.
Yeah.
There's something about... I think there's something in Star Wars, and I was always confused about this. There's something about shields potentially disrupting, like, being able to pick things up with the Force.
Convenient.
Yeah, very convenient.
It doesn't disrupt ships being able to propel themselves around and any other physics.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Star Wars physics is, you can't think too hard about it. You have to be happy with basic explanations. There's sound in space.
I didn't understand what happened with Watto. Watto's making this deal, like,
yo.
Okay. Him and Qui-Gon are cutting this deal. Qui-Gon's like, look, let's split it 50-50. And then Qui-Gon's like, if it's going to be 50-50, you keep all the winnings minus the price of the parts.
He says, if it's going to be 50-50, you front the cash for the bet. And then we...
like, wait, so if it's going to be 50-50, let's make it not 50-50.
Yeah.
I watched I had to watch the Red Letter Media
the Plinkett review.
Yeah, the Plinkett review for this thing before we did this, and like he does such a funny segment where he's making fun of this, where he replays the lines of like Qui-Gon and Watto being like, "Okay, you do this thing, you bring the pod, you supply the pod, I get his mother, and then we get the thing," and it's just like over and over, and it's like it really underlines because I wrote down while I was watching this, I'm like, what the hell is this arrangement?
Yeah.
Like, what is the stakes? Like, who's doing what?
It doesn't make sense because then the race is over and Watto is so pissed.
Yeah,
it's like, you get all the winnings.
Yeah.
Why are you mad?
Yeah.
I know, because...
Well, he was going to get more winnings on Sebulba winning it.
Yeah, and he thought...
He lost the slave, I guess.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's messed up is when Qui-Gon is like, hey, I would like to take the boy home. Watto whips out this die.
I would like your 9-year-old boy.
He rolls this die, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, heads, it's going to be the boy, and tails, the girl. But Qui-Gon hadn't even proposed that.
Yeah.
As a thing yet, that he hadn't even put Shmi Skywalker on the table.
No, originally he wanted to both. He's like, I'll wager it against the freedom of the boy and his mother. And he's like, no pod is worth 2 slaves.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'll give you one of them.
Yep.
And then I know you want the boy, so how about we do a chance cube if, because he would rather lose the mom than the boy.
Do we even know that?
I think that's the implication there.
He's an adult. He's way more productive.
Well, but what do we? This is the big problem.
But he's going to
be
productive for longer.
Okay.
What does she do? We never see her do anything. She lives comfortably as a stay-at-home mom in her slave pod.
I don't think she stays at home.
But like, we don't see her do
Maybe
anything.
she
We don't
does the
see how she
paperwork.
participates.
She has a bigger apartment than Japan.
They got a nice apartment.
Not bad.
Yeah,
Although Tatooine, there's lots of space.
It
so
gets
real
everywhere.
estate is not a premium.
This whole part of the movie is such a waste of my time because like it's so clearly reverse engineered to get us to Tatooine and have like a moment in Tatooine, and it's like it's so unnecessary. Like it's so drawn out. Like why? Like Qui-Gon walking, will be like, let's try one of the smaller vendors. Walks right to an unmarked building, and they happen to have the part. Like, is it the Force guiding him? Like, is it just fucking bad screenwriting?
Well, maybe he does say it was his destiny to find the boy.
Yeah, that's fucking stupid.
What? I feel like we could have started this movie on Tatooine.
It should have started with Anakin, and in the sky is a big starship crashing down, and he runs up to him, and then there's a battle, and he's like,
Yeah.
whoa, and then he gets pulled into the adventure
Heck
right
yeah.
away.
And then we have all these characters,
Yeah.
and we have to learn their backstories.
Yeah.
Like maybe Jar Jar's there, but we have to like learn
Yeah.
that he's part of this other species. And
Yeah. And you kill Qui-Gon in like the second battle, and Obi-Wan is on the revenge path.
heck yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, now we're talking.
Heck
We're
about
fucking
yeah.
making a movie.
Now we're good.
But it's funny. You can
the
say
thing, yeah.
anything you want about Phantom Menace, and it'll be better than what we fucking got.
Oh my god.
It's true. It's so sad.
Yo, what were the Sith getting revenge for? One of Darth Maul's like 2 lines is him being like, "Yes, we will have our revenge."
Oh, they'll get the revenge because the Jedi and the Sith have warred for thousands and thousands of years, and the Jedi defeated the Sith. Well, actually, the Sith kind of defeated themselves, but it was because the Jedi kept screwing them up, and so they've been in
You
exile.
damn Jedi! Burn for you and your dog.
They've had to be hiding for millennia, or for 1,000 years, something like that. So they're like, oh, we'll get our revenge against the Jedi for screwing us over.
Why is Palpatine dismayed when Amidala returns to Naboo? He just got elected Supreme Chancellor or whatever.
Because he wanted her to sign the treaty.
But why does he care anymore?
I don't know. That's the weird.
And then, like, why does he want to win the war? Why does he want to end up like destroying Naboo?
Okay, so this is kind of, I'll say this is one of the cool things about watching this for the first time in a while with sort of like a critical eye for the first time, which was kind of realizing the machinations of Palpatine, where it's like before I knew that the overall arc of the prequels was that Palpatine had sort of like set things up so that he would become Chancellor and then, take over the Republic and make it the Empire and all that. But this time, I think I kind of it really came home to me that I was like, oh, he's talking to the Trade Federation and he's talking to Amidala and he's setting things up on both sides so that it's not like he has a very clear goal. And it's more seems that he's just kind of like trying to play these parties against each other in order to cause stability so that he can...
Instability.
Instability.
He's
so that,
Putin.
Yeah, sure. And he knows that the instability is happening and the intricacies of it, so he can take advantage of it more easily. I don't know if he's like...
I mean, Amidala is Trump.
What? No.
Anyway, let's
Yeah,
get out
I
of here.
think
and
it's
he's Steve Bannon
Jesus.
if he was successful.
Okay.
Whoa. What?
I don't know. Yeah.
Political.
I think it's a really stupidly complicated plot. Like, it doesn't need to be. I think like there's a better way to have him produce instability, or certainly a more interesting way to have him produce that kind of instability, so that he can get the vote of no confidence, so that he can get the power, so that in 2 movies he can do stuff. It just seems like it doesn't feel like he's accomplishing that much within the movie. I don't know. Like, it just it feels like it just all feels like a waste of time.
Let's
That's for sure.
let's talk about some of the things I wanted to talk about, which was one, the Jedi Order. Okay,
yes.
so this is the first time we're seeing this Jedi Order in its prime, and like I said, it's cool to see all the powers and stuff. But we're also getting more of an insight into like what the Jedi Order is, and in later movies we'll see that like the I don't know if it's laid out explicitly, but it's certainly implied that the Jedi Order is has become too bureaucratic, has lost who they are. Who are they supposed to be? Yeah. And in this one, we have these very dogmatic beliefs about, oh, this kid, we can't train him because he is too old. Yeah. Also, Yoda super lame because like we remember him as this like quirky, warm, kind of crazy Jedi master. And in this one, he's just like, I do things by the rules. And he's too old. So.
I liked him way better when he was still a puppet, because originally in this movie he was a puppet, and then they replaced him with the digital one because they finally had the tech to do it.
Oh yeah,
so much worse.
I honestly, I was thinking that while I was watching this one, because I guess the one that I watched had the CGI one, and I was like, was Yoda CGI in this one? I thought it was a puppet.
He was a lower quality puppet. Maybe not lower quality, but slightly off puppet. So I get why they did it, but it also has so much more charm.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways,
this CGI.
Back to the Jedi Order though. They make Anakin. I don't know if they make him, but like Anakin leaves his mother there, and I think that really solidifies to me the real difference between the Jedi Order of old, the Republic Jedi, and like the Jedi Order that Luke, that he didn't
in
help
the Legends
but in the
timeline.
Legends timeline, the Jedi Order that Luke founds, which is sort of like a more understanding, more nuanced Jedi Order, where it's like you can have attachments, and we understand that emotions aren't always to be completely suppressed. They are useful, and they are part of the real human experience. Blah blah blah. So in this one, I'm like, Luke totally would have saved the mom. you know?
Yeah.
But the reason Qui-Gon isn't like, well, we will try to save your mother, you know? It's just like, I will take the boy, and I'm taking the course.
But I don't think that it's like a thought out thing. I think it's just that they like were like, man. Like I don't think they're like, hey, well, we're gonna show the hubris of the Jedi Order's like dogmatic principles.
Definitely not in this one. I think in the later ones it comes
like Last
to a bit.
Jedi. I think that's kind of when they address it.
Well, see, okay.
I think that's when they start to address. I mean, extended universe does it elsewhere.
We'll talk about that later. But I think that by Revenge of the Sith, we're seeing a little bit of that, like intentionally. But definitely in this one, I'll go with. I'll give you that it really doesn't even seem like it's a thought at all. Like Qui-Gon is just like, we'll take him. Yeah. And the question of what to do about
Shmi.
Anakin's mom is like not even raised at all. Where I'm like, any human. Her name is
Hook,
Shmi.
from Hook.
Yeah.
Her name is Shmi Skywalker. Yeah. It's not even raised at all. No. And I'm like, if this was Luke and he found the chosen one, he'd be like, we're gonna try and rescue your mother too.
Yeah.
You know. And it rubs me the wrong way.
Oh, totally. And like, what about Amidala?
Qui-Gon asks her, "Will you be all right?"
Yeah.
You know, like,
is slavery doing
living,
you okay?
Living the rest of your life in literal slavery with a bomb in your brain. If you that'll go off if you run too far away.
Made it this far.
You're gonna be okay.
Yeah. No, it's.
I found a grammatical error that Yoda said. He says, "Trained as a Jedi, you request for him." Trained as a Jedi, you request for him to be.
Yoda, you're fired from the Jedi Council.
Yep.
We've let you have this quirk for this long.
No.
We think you're weird, but we've let you be here, but just last straw.
Yeah.
Come on, Yoda.
Can we talk about how terrible Darth Maul is?
Before we talk about that,
how good
one more
he
thing
is.
about the Jedi Order. Okay.
Yes.
One thing that I thought was super interesting is the fact that the Jedi Order is like, control your emotions, okay? Fear leads to anger leads to hate, blah, blah, blah. Emotions are bad. They lead you to the dark side.
Probably the best line of dialogue in the movie.
Well, and I've heard a lot of people say that's completely inaccurate. You know, like fear doesn't have to lead to hate, doesn't have to lead to suffering. But I didn't read it as like
Fuck do they know?
fear. This is the progression of things all the time.
Sure.
I read it more that like
This
you got to be
can,
careful about fear because it can lead to these things. Anyways, Qui-Gon's advice to Anakin in the pod before the pod race, he's like, feel, don't think. And I was like, whoa, that's really anti-Jedi.
Yep.
You know? But
Isn't that the same message that Luke gets?
yeah.
Search your feelings.
So in the Jedi is like, control your emotions until it's time to use them. And then when it's time in the pod race, in the Death Star run, you have to suppress your higher order control that wants to overanalyze things and like, you know, you have to suppress that and channel your feelings, channel your emotions into productive, creative chaos. And so that's what I really like about the Jedi Order. I got chills just saying that right now. I was like, it's like there is a time for things. There is a time to feel. There's a time to think. Anyways, I like that
you're
about the
giving them
Jedi.
so much credit.
Well, I'm saying that there are toxic, dogmatic things about them, but I'm saying that this is something that I saw in this movie where I was like, that's cool.
Then why is Qui-Gon touch like Shmi's arm to comfort her? Like it's not. It's just that I think you're bringing order into something that's just not that well thought out.
You're saying that the film doesn't do a good job.
Riley,
of
this
presenting.
is a movie where Jar Jar Binks says, Gunga City, 'tis a hidden city. It's a hidden city. And then later in the movie, after the planet's invaded, they go, oh, the Gungans, they're hanging out in a sacred place. Not the hidden city. They're hanging out on land.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But hey, when we're talking about Star Wars here, I'm bringing in all the other
universe,
stuff.
sure.
Yeah, I'm not just talking about just in this movie, but yeah.
But I mean, that's something that's amazing about Star Wars is how much better the fans made it.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a big boon to it is how much passion and care went into it, and then was enabled by the creators of the series or the managers of the series to express that. And I think that they do a lot of the heavy lifting of fixing those little problems.
Right.
But fundamentally, these movies are fucking bad.
What's the deal with the Immaculate Conception?
Yeah, I don't. Clearly it's supposed to be a Christ thing,
Yeah.
but it's so unnecessary.
It's totally unnecessary.
So dumb.
Especially since there's so many lineages in this world. Nope.
It's a bit strange for sure. I don't know. I feel like it works to have him conceived by the Force. Like he's the chosen one. There's this prophecy. There's this mystical energy in the universe.
Imagine she just looked right at him and was like, I don't know who the father is. I was whack. I was a wild.
It could be any one of these aliens.
Wild baddie.
Yeah, no, that didn't bother me. Obviously, I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like it makes sense that they're in the universe. In the universe of Star Wars, there are these like eddies and currents of the Force. There are some locations
you must like
that are
midichlorians then.
what?
I feel like the Immaculate Conception goes part and parcel with the midichlorians.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I don't love the midichlorians,
No.
but there are certain locations, certain people are stronger in the Force in the Star Wars universe. So it's like, okay, this was like a nexus point where the Force like converged so much that it like created life itself.
Yeah.
Wait, on Tatooine?
Yeah.
We're
Well, I guess that's why the movies keep going back, not because they're trying to sell something to fans. Makes sense. I said, every problem I have with Star Wars, it's the Force. That's the solution.
Yeah, there are two super important planets in Star Wars, and they're both deserts, Tatooine and Jakku.
Yeah.
And-
Let's talk about all the varied, complex inner life of Darth Maul.
Yeah.
What is the deal? Okay, back to production design. Darth Maul looks so sick.
So sick.
He looks awesome.
So sick on a
It's
poster.
awesome.
Hood on, hood off. He looks cool.
Yeah.
Unfortunately-
Double-bladed lightsaber.
Yeah, sick.
Unfortunately, that's about the extent of the cool things that we could say about
His
Maul.
voice
Okay.
is cool. Ray Kroc didn't get to do his own voice. They dubbed over him.
Ray Parker? Ray Park?
Yeah.
No, Rara
Croc? It's a crock of shit. Why? That's why.
Lara Croft.
That guy he played Toad in the first X-Men.
Rape. Oh, yeah.
He was
because
Toad.
he's parkour man.
Yeah.
He's a stunt man.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's not much to say. They cut all his lines. They cut all his development.
Did he have more lines?
He had way more lines.
Oh.
Apparently Jake Lloyd said there's a 6-hour version of this movie, and him and his friends saw it. And maybe this is a made up story.
Who's that?
Jake Lloyd is Anakin.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they said it was like awesome. It was like way better. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
right. He's just saying that.
but there is a lot more. And originally there was lots of lines, and they cut it in the script, and then they shot more lines and recorded more lines, and then they cut it again.
Interesting.
All right, were they beholden to any kind of
But
existing
wait, I
canon?
need to stop this. Fans, we know he's developed in the Clone Wars. I know that he's a better character in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But
David wanted to make sure that
yeah,
he
yeah,
got this
I have.
right.
I'm not going to go into it. I have a whole thing about how few people are watching the Clone Wars compared to the movies, and why that's not an excuse for terrible character in the movie. Basically, I calculated it's like at least 10 times less people are watching Clone Wars in the movies. It's probably more of a factor of 100 or 1,000.
Yeah.
So to be like, oh, well, it's all explained to the Clone Wars, not a good excuse.
I mean,
Not a good
regardless,
excuse, but it's to the let me say this properly. Not a good excuse, but it is commendable that the Clone Wars exists, and it makes you enjoy the movies more.
Fair.
That is an
That's fair.
achievement.
That's fair.
For sure. And that's what I was gonna say. That like the Clone Wars, I think I watched 3 seasons, or somebody recommended like specific episodes,
Yeah.
and they're like, here's a watching guide. So I didn't watch every episode, but I watched like key episodes from the first like 3 or 4 seasons.
Yep.
And even those key episodes, I was kind of like, all right, I think I get the idea. Like
Yeah.
I'm not like at the edge of my seat here. But it was kind of a cool like exploration of the world, and I think the fact that we got that show makes these movies more enjoyable, as you say.
I think that's fair.
And so like I go back and watch this movie, and I'm like, I wanted to give it after I finished watching it. I was like, what do I give this, like a 7.5? But then I like honestly, as I thought about it more, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That this is bad, blah blah. And I watched like all these reviews and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is totally just me and my blinders, my Star Wars fan blinders. So I think that people who say that the prequels are totally redeemed and they're totally fine now because the Clone Wars exists, that's not a valid opinion.
Why do the Jedi wear robes? Okay,
What?
In Episode 4,
Because they're monks. They're
no,
spiritual
man.
monks.
We're on Tatooine. We meet Ben Kenobi. He's a crazy recluse. He wears this creepy robe because he's a crazy recluse on a desert planet, and in deserts you wear robes because it's good for your body heat.
Yeah.
But then they go back in time to Episode 1, and it's like, why not have all the Jedi wear the same costume that this recluse on Tatooine wore, just to like harken back?
Well,
to
it's
the
not.
production.
It's
like-
not only because of that. It's because they're monks. They're part of a religious order that they're
I
like
don't think
Buddhist
so.
monks, sort of.
I think they're just like, this is what the first Jedi we looked at looks
I-
like.
No, I'm sure.
Let's make them all look like
I'm
him.
sure that's a big contributor and possibly the biggest.
They should have had new costumes.
But
in
I'm
this
just saying
movie.
it's not that much of a stretch that like these warrior monks would be wearing these like distinctive robes.
to me, it's interesting.
It's
though,
not a
because-
distinctive robe. It's just like a burlap robe.
yeah.
Well, whatever.
It's interesting though. It's like how much do you like? What is the sweet spot for giving the movie the benefit of the doubt? Because like I think you are in a place where you're like, I want to bring in these outside explanations that make sense as to why the Jedi all look like Ben Kenobi.
Right.
Whereas like realistically, when you totally remove yourself from the context of
Yeah.
that, it is just they saw a Jedi had a robe. I guess they all have robes.
Yeah.
So how much are we like? What's a normal amount of context to bring in, and what's like
if it
what's
existed
not?
in other like extended universe like novels and stuff like that, if it existed before the movie came out, it's good to go.
Okay.
I don't know if this movie was beholden to any canon.
I think
Before.
I think there were definitely well, actually,
Like, did midichlorians exist before the movie?
No, midichlorians were new. Before the prequels, there were a ton of novels and stuff. Particularly the part of the reason why they went back and made these movies was because the Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn, and like that kickstarted like a whole run of Star Wars novels that kind of brought people like it brought up the
revitalized.
fandom. Yeah, revitalized. That's the word I'm looking for. And so there was this extra lore, but they weren't allowed to explore the period of the Clone Wars. They weren't allowed to write books about this period. So
Right.
a lot of the stuff is new, but at the same time, I feel like by the time the prequels came out, the idea that Jedi wear these robes and stuff like that, a lot of things had been solidified. Things have hyperdrives and shields, and this is how they work, and blah, blah, blah. There's astromech droids, and they're used in starfighters, and these kind of things. So I don't know what the appropriate amount to bring in is. I just know that with a movie in the Star Wars franchise, it's always going to be confusing to somebody who is not familiar with everything, right? It's the same thing with the Marvel movies, where if you watch one of the newer ones and you don't know all the backstory and the history and why this person's able to shoot eye lasers, you're like, well, they can't shoot eye lasers. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
But
it's like, it makes sense.
I think there's a difference where in Marvel, if someone starts shooting lasers from their eyes, you're just like, oh yeah, I guess in this universe, people shoot lasers from their eyes. But in this context, you're like, these people are stupid. Like, these people are dumb until you explain away with some convoluted explanation.
Yeah.
And so to me, like, it's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to find the line because, like, I don't want to hate Star Wars, but, like, I'm so sick of these arguments of people being like, well, Star Wars is this way because that's how I know it, and these are the contexts that I bring in. And, well, no, Star Wars is this to me because this is the context I bring into it. And it's just so frustrating because how can you have a debate about Star Wars when everyone's perspective is so drastically
including
different?
the directors.
Yeah.
I will say that, like, the Last Jedi.
It had to come here.
No, okay. Well, the reason why it's interesting because watching the prequels through and kind of like diving into the critical reception of the prequels, I had never really dove into the history of these things and how people felt before.
What did adults think when this came out? Because you were like 10.
So it's got like 55% on both the critics and the audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes or something. So it seems like it was really mixed. I think most people who went and saw the movie like walking out of the theater, most people liked it. It was analyzing it afterwards that people were like, wait a second, this is really dumb, which is exactly my experience with The Last Jedi, actually. So the parallel that I was going to draw there is that when I saw The Last Jedi, it really made me question Star Wars. And I'm like, I wanted this to be cool. And now I'm facing a reality in which Star Wars sucks and I don't like it. And I don't like that I don't like it. And watching these movies, I was like, oh, this has happened before. This is not a new thing that's happening where people are like, Star Wars is dead. Oh my God, it's not the same. It's not what I wanted. It's like this is all happened before with the prequels. And I don't want it to get to a point. I don't think it will. I think I don't think it'll get to a point where people think about the sequels the same way that they do about the prequels.
No, I think the prequels have
because they
more
are actively
charm.
avoiding it right now.
Well, totally, and I think that there's more complex things, and maybe we'll talk about the sequels more. But I think the prequels do have that like indescribable naivete about them.
Right.
They like I said at the beginning, it feels spun out of passion, and it's hugely misguided. But it doesn't feel like it exists because George Lucas wanted to make more money. It feels like he finally had the technology to kind of establish or build on the story he already had and make this happen. And so I don't begrudge the prequels that much. I think they're terrible pieces of shit movies, but I'm glad that he got to express himself. And like the way it revitalized Star Wars in the early 2000s is what I think people of our generation remember is that era of Star Wars. And it's not because of the movies, it's because of what was spinning out of that passion.
Absolutely. No, I love that idea.
There's a shot. This has nothing to do with anything. There's a shot.
You're just going complete non sequitur?
Oh, yes. There's a shot with Sababa after he gets on, like, you know, when Annie's like, careful, Sababa, and sends him back to his table and he's all mad. Sababa's sitting at his table, being all pissy, and there's like one of his like friends sitting at the table is like a human, like rogue looking dude sitting there, and that actor is just staring at the floor. He's staring at nothing. He has an expressionless face. It looks like he's on a break. And the reason is because the character who's the subject of all the action in that shot is CG. He's invisible. He's sitting beside an empty chair, so he's just sitting there looking at the floor. And then Sebulba's having like a fit beside him, but he's not reacting to it.
That's so funny.
And everyone's like, look at the CG character doing the things.
Man, this was so early on in the days of full CG characters being like really interacting with
and
characters.
Even green screen.
And like a lot of it does hold up. Like obviously some of it doesn't, but they really didn't have the techniques for drawing performances out of people.
Like, was there even a tennis ball in that empty chair for him to know where Sebulba was going to be?
What's the Chancellor? Yeah, the Chancellor. He hated working on this movie because when he had to interact with Natalie Portman, she wasn't on set, so they taped a piece of paper to the wall and they're like, act.
Terrence Stamp is
That's
the guy.
it, and he hated the whole thing.
You're talking about Palpatine or Valorum?
No, the other one.
Yeah, Valorum, the guy who gets replaced. A lot of actors have said that in documentaries and stuff where they were like, it was a hard thing to do because Liam Neeson, I think, was talking to another actor person, and he was like, it was not fun because we go onto set and it's literally just blue screens everywhere, and I'm like, imagine all these crazy cool things are happening, and imagine these people are here.
And now we figured out more too, because like, you watch. I mean, it's not a particularly great movie, but the Sonic movie, and you watch behind the scenes, and they have like a little Sonic figurine that they put for them to act and see have the scale to. And there's like I don't know if the actual voice actor is there, but they're like more engaged with the voice acting. Whereas this is like some random AD off screen being like, yeah, you have to sign the treaty. And he's like, yes, I must sign the thing.
People are dying, Senator.
I mean, but like I feel like this is something that can be a criticism of the movie in that like, okay, this is the first time they're doing a lot of stuff they didn't quite know how to like accomplish it the way that we do today. But at the same time, it was groundbreaking.
100%.
This movie was groundbreaking in the way that it like introduced all of these like fully 3D SFX stuff.
And it's like DDT. It's like hell of a chemical. Didn't know it was going to kill all the baby birds.
Whoopsies.
Now it's illegal. We just didn't know about climate change.
Bestos.
I mean, this is the only prequel movie that was shot on film, and I think it does really well. And I think the CG, they've done a really good job like reintegrating it into film.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's the best looking of the prequels, honestly.
Right.
Have you guys?
I love it.
Have you seen the deleted scenes?
I did actually.
Okay, there's a scene in the movie that's just like Padme cleaning R2D2. Yes. And then she meets Jar Jar Binks, and Jar Jar Binks says he's scared. And then that's basically the whole scene. We don't get any characterization of Padme. Although it serves to like introduce, hey, this person who you thought was like an extra, she's actually a character. It's Padme. But we don't learn anything about her. Like, is she sensitive? Or
this is a
nothing.
Huge problem that we haven't talked about a ton. And we we don't have that much time more to talk about it. But like none of the characters, it's so hard to characterize any of them. And I feel like I can now because I've spent so much time with them and with like the world. But like, who's Qui-Gon? Who's Obi-Wan? Who is it Padme? Who's Anakin? Like, we don't really know who they are. And it's one of the biggest problems of the movie, for sure.
And specific to that, like, there's a way in which they could build out that idea of having the decoy, and they use that as an opportunity to get the audience to know Padme. That could work. But in this context, in this movie, it's such a waste of time. Like, it adds nothing to the movie to have her be like, haha, that other girl is actually this girl, and this girl is that girl. Like, it doesn't mean anything because, like, Queen, like, Amidala was just hanging out with them the whole time anyway, just, like, in less regal clothes. Like, it meant nothing. It's all so stupid. And, like,
the best part
is
that
decoy thing is so stupid because she's walking around on, like slum streets with random Jedi. Like, they're not protecting her. It just exists to be a stupid movie, twist.
Well, no one's gonna attack a young girl in a shady place because she's not the queen. What? No one. They're only interested in her if she's got the headdress.
Yeah.
So
I like when she grabs that pistol out of the arm of the throne.
Yeah.
Aha! We're in home field advantage, baby.
Or it's like, we're a very peaceful people.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason I brought that up is because if you think those scenes are inefficient and stupid, wait till you see the deleted scenes. There's a scene where like they're little,
literally nothing happens.
What do they call the bombo?
Gungans?
The ship, their submarine.
Oh, the
bongo.
It's called the bongo. It goes over a waterfall. I was watching it and I was just mad. I was like, I'm so glad they cut
completely
this.
unnecessary.
This is so stupid.
That whole sequence of going through the planet core is so dumb too because like they swam with like little rebreathers to the underwater city in like what, a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how small is Naboo that it's faster to like go through the core with a ship for like half an, like it's just
Wait,
like,
what do you mean?
it just the whole.
Well, they landed on the opposite side of the planet as the capital.
Yeah, but then the people march there anyway.
Who does?
The droids.
No, they landed all over the planet.
Oh.
That's the scale of the army.
Okay.
Let me tell you what's
Sure.
dumb though, the fact that they have the scale, like these massive blockade of thousands of ships, and then later they return to the planet and there's only one.
Yeah.
Where'd they all go?
Yeah.
What do you mean? You're
And, like,
actively invading this planet. You're just gonna get rid of your whole fleet?
What was their plan when they were rushing the blockade? Like what was their they were just hoping to get through, like that their shields wouldn't break, because they're like, oh, we keep on our course, we're gonna be sitting ducks. It's like, what did you expect? Like this whole thing is stupid. It
That's
makes
a
no
big
sense.
problem with Star Wars movies in particular in general, because the video games and books dive into this a lot more, where it's like you have a shield, and if your shield takes enough hits, then the shield's gone,
Yep.
and then you're suffering damage to your hull. But in the movies, all the time, lasers get through the shield and hit the drive, the shield generator,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh no, the shield generator's been hit.
Yeah.
Without the shields, we're sitting ducks. Like, how did the shield get hit?
Yeah.
If the shields were up, like, yeah. Anyways, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Stupid.
It's weird watching these movies just because you see the ships and the droids and everything. You're like, man, I had that in Lego.
Yeah. It's cool.
It really brings you back.
I gotta love. Like, I feel like James. I feel like you and I are watching these movies in completely different mindsets. Like, I'm just. I don't know. I'm looking at it as in like, here are all these things that I've like spent my entire life with, and like I know how the mechanics work, and this is how a lightsaber works, and shields, blah blah blah. And you're just like, I had a Lego of that.
Yeah.
No, I'm halfway there. Like I had,
you're halfway there. Yeah,
I
yeah.
had some games that I played the crap out of, and I'm watching them on Naboo, and I'm like, I walked up and down that street on Naboo so many times in that game.
Man.
I just didn't have like an encyclopedia that I read.
Right. Exactly.
Fair.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're halfway there.
This is the thing I need to talk about the most. And it's very real, very important.
Oh dear, this is a joke.
If you have ever criticized the fight in The Last Jedi, the Rey and
The Red Room,
You're
the
gonna
Red Room
make
fight,
you're gonna make
you
me mad,
are
David.
not
You're gonna-
allowed to
Nope.
like the Duel of the Fates.
Shut the
if
hell
you're like,
up.
oh, what they're doing is like so fake, and if you pay attention, then it's like it's silly movie stuff.
Uh-huh.
The Duel of Fates is all that.
Wait.
Every hit wouldn't hit a person. They are like totally missing. They're so far away from each other.
Uh-huh.
They're doing like silly pirouettes to make sure that Darth Maul has time to fight them.
Yeah.
And so if you're like, Duel of Fates is so sick, and then you're like, well, actually, Last Jedi is so unbelievable, you're a hypocrite and a piece of poo.
Okay, hold on. I can
Yeah.
say that the Last Jedi fight was horribly choreographed, and agree with you here that large parts of the Darth Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fight are there's some pretty unnecessary things for sure. But there are also some really cool parts. Like Obi-Wan, they're like facing them and they have these close-ups, like it's a tense battle. They have a close-up with Darth Maul, and then
How
they
could
do
it
a
be
close-up.
tense when there's no characters you care about?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you there. I'm just saying, like, from a technical standpoint, we get a close-up on them, a close-up on Qui-Gon, a close-up on Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan fakes towards Darth Maul, and then allows Qui-Gon to
Yeah,
go.
I saw that.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. It's like a sports move. Like, oh, I'm going over here. Just kidding.
So two
And then
people
they do
working
a
together
backflip.
to overcome the adversaries is like cool, but not when two people are working together to overcome a bunch of
No,
adversaries.
you can't make the argument that the Last Jedi fight is good because it's not. It's just objectively not. However, I will agree with you. I will agree with you that
You can't say one is good and one's not good. They both suffer from the same issues.
Okay,
well,
but let
no, because the one in The Last Jedi is a gang fight, and one of the issues is that there's these people who are just like standing there, like not,
Qui-Gon does that multiple times. He'll do like 4 seconds of like standing still or pirouetting when he's avoiding to actually swing, so that Darth Maul can recover from the other person.
Yeah.
That 100% happens in this fight.
There are
right, all
problems.
right.
There are problems with the choreography for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
There are
All I'm
just
saying,
as many.
It's super obvious in The Last Jedi because there are like
No,
8 of
because
the-
you chose to not like The
No,
Last Jedi. At
just
one point,
take
you
it-
took the internet culture
No,
in your brain.
no.
You took those videos and you're like, oh yeah, I totally believe that. I'm
David,
making it mine.
David, take a step back here.
I will not.
In The Last Jedi fight, there's like 8 people attacking 2 people,
Mm-hmm.
and there are times where the 8 people are just literally standing there, and you
Mm-hmm.
can see them standing there for like 3 or 4 seconds, and not attacking because they're waiting their turn to attack.
Yeah, that happens in this fight too.
No.
Yes, you just haven't decided to look that closely.
Why don't you guys both just be an adult and when an action scene starts, turn off your brain and then wait the 5 minutes until the movie starts again?
Sure.
So what I'm saying is
That's
that
what I do.
The Last Jedi fight's bad. There are also large parts of this fight that are bad.
Yep.
And that your criticism is valid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that by the end of this fight, there is a cool fake out fight that I thought moment that I thought was really cool. And then at the end,
there's not a single moment in the Last Jedi fight you think is cool.
No, there are definitely parts of the Last Jedi
so
fight that
they're
I think are cool.
equivalent.
For sure. Okay. But at the end of this one, when Qui-Gon's dead, Obi-Wan's waiting.
And Darth Maul is waiting for 10 seconds. Like, I'm going to give you a chance to recover now.
What do you mean?
We're
When?
going to wait?
They're separated by the energy beam.
No, when they're
hallway, right?
separated by
he's
the energy
hanging
beam.
down.
Okay, no, I'm talking about.
And he gives him like
I'm
15
talking about
seconds to recover.
Right after Darth Maul stabs Qui-Gon.
Sure.
And Qui-Gon's dead. And we're like, no! And we see Obi-Wan for the very first time in the movie have actual emotion on his face.
Sure.
And I'm feeling things because I'm like, oh my gosh, his master just died. That's the first time in the movie where I actually feel a spark of life in me.
Yeah.
And I feel that Obi-Wan is going to channel this passion into something. And he comes bursting out when the laser gate falls down. He's like, do.
Yeah, but then
he does this super cool double block front to back thing with double blade lightsaber.
But none of the hits would have hit each other. That's another problem. Not only is there this holding pattern bullshit in this fight, none of the saber hits were aiming for the body. They're totally missing.
I don't think so.
When you sword fight with your friends, and you're like, I'm not actually trying to hit you. I'm trying to hit your sword.
Watch the video, Riley, and the audience. Watch the video, the totally Phantom Menace, and it shows you frame by frame. They're just not aiming for each other. It's an overly choreographed, nonsense, not dangerous fight.
I agree. I completely agree.
Yes, then how can you like it?
Because it's a dance. All right? And let me say, once again, I agree with you, okay? There are huge problems in the choreography.
Yes.
But the fact that they're swinging their sabers in motions that wouldn't actually hit the other person is a style that they are doing. And the Old Republic style. Don't laugh. This is a valid point.
We're missing on purpose.
No, they're not missing on purpose. It's a dance. They're going around with certain style and certain technique so that they are clashing sabers. And so I'm just saying that part where the double back to front double block thing, that would have hit him. So there are times where they're doing that, and also lightsabers. You don't need to have weight behind the swing. You just need to make a bit of contact, and it'll do damage. So I'm just saying, I think your opinion is valid.
You're such a hypocrite.
All right, let's move on.
Oh, that's an ad hominem, dude.
But
let's move on.
I'm not attacking you.
The other thing is, we talked about briefly, that fight has no emotion behind it, and it's totally empty. And the Last Jedi fight has lots of emotion. A lot of cool stuff just happened. It's a huge character moment.
Yeah.
And this fight is representative of this this thing that's going on.
Right.
And
I
so,
found
okay,
that the Darth Maul, or the end of that fight, sucks.
Yeah.
When Obi-Wan's hanging there.
Yeah.
And then, Darth Maul's not aware that you can use the Force to move the second lightsaber that's on the ground right beside him. Darth Maul did that during this fight. He used the Force to open a door behind him. He can do that. He's aware of that.
Yeah.
And then when the lightsaber does get to Obi-Wan, it's just super slow. He jumps right up right in front of him. I really wish that Maul would have swung at him and missed and then got chopped in half or something. It just really looks like.
And I think it comes down
unearned.
to this: is that that's the one part of the movie where I feel emotion. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna defend this a little bit because it actually made me feel something. But the problem with the Last Jedi thing is that I would have felt something, but it was taken away because the movie is good. I've said this before, if it wasn't a Star Wars movie that had all this that ode to
disrespect to the Star Wars.
Of the lore and
sure.
all this stuff. It would have been a decent movie. And if you take all that stuff out, it's a good movie in terms of the characters and these interesting themes and things going
really
on.
Cool moments.
For sure. And so that is an emotional moment. And the fact that the choreography is so bad in the sense that I can see right through into the set, and I see the directors standing behind the camera.
But that's only on your second and third watch. That's like you said.
Guys,
you didn't notice that?
It takes me out of it.
Did you know that Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor were locked in a room with the art designers? They had opened a little locked case with 20 lightsaber hilts, and they're like, pick them. You only have 5 minutes. This is your character's lightsaber hilt. Because George Lucas was like, I don't want them to study them. He just wants them to pick them up and feel the right one.
Oh, wow.
I was like, that's pretty cool.
Dang, dude.
Feel. Use your feelings.
Exactly.
Okay,
Anyways.
we're into hit picks and nitpicks.
Nitpicks.
Real
Obi-Wan's hair is the worst hair. in
Yeah,
the
just
whole-
normalizing rat tails.
Yeah, well, not even that. The 12-year-old gel, like, and it's inconsistent.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like kind of natural, like fuzz, but sometimes it's like you can see the like thick gel in the back. I'm like, who did
So
this?
I think this must have been like a style in
Yeah,
the
the
late
overly
90s.
gelled hair.
Overly
sure.
gelled and also just kind of like cut short and not styled really in a way.
Just brutal.
It's just kind of spiked up a bit, sort of.
Here's a
Yeah.
nitpick. They come through the breach. They're on Naboo. A big door opens. There's when they're entering the hangar and all the
Yeah.
droids are in the hangar. When they come through that door, the first one through the door is Queen Amidala.
Yeah.
Like, with her pistol. I'm like, shouldn't it be at the back?
Yeah.
She's a leader. She's
Warrior princess.
with her people.
Badass.
Speaking of Queen Amidala,
14 years old.
all of the Keira Knightley ADR with Natalie Portman's voice is terrible. It looks
Do they do that?
so bad. Yeah.
I didn't even know.
And I hate the voice, and I didn't realize this. But okay, so because I knew that she had studied with like some classical Shakespearean actor to get a more queenly voice, but they just digitally pitched her down so that she had a more authoritative voice. And I'm like, that's why it sounds so off. That queen
Yeah.
voice is so bad. And why is she dead faced every time she's in makeup? She has like the soul has been extinguished from within her.
This isn't a nitpick.
This is a huge problem. But I mean, in the scale of this movie, that's
I feel I can kind of see how like maybe it's tradition or it's like proper for the queen to like not display emotion and stuff, so she has to be this like stoic thing or whatever.
George Lucas hates emotion.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, maybe.
or he doesn't, or he just doesn't know how to write it, and he
Yeah.
thinks that what he's writing is this like emotional brilliance. I had an argument with a friend about whether Qui-Gon is using the Force to help melt the door.
I was trying to figure that out unequivocally on this watch, and I think maybe
I don't think he is.
I think no.
My friend was trying to make the argument that the reason why they're melting through the door is because he's using the Force to amplify it, and I'm like,
I thought
no,
that
he's
was a
just sticking
thing.
his lightsaber in there.
Yeah, that's right.
But
I thought that was a thing, but there's no shot of him like closing his eyes and
Yeah.
trying harder.
Yeah.
There really isn't.
So I can see how he could do that, but I don't think it's like
explicit in the movie.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think it's one of those things, if you bring in the context from outside,
Do you
maybe.
have another nitpick?
Yeah.
I have a quick hit pick.
Yeah, go for the hit pick.
You can't show the Tusken Raiders without showing them celebrate.
That
they
was one of
just
those,
love celebrating.
There was one of of hand fan service moments where I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
I roll my eyes.
Yeah.
I don't
When
know.
I was
I
a
thought
kid,
that
I was
was
probably
fun.
like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah.
But it just annoyed me.
I love that.
Because I nitpicked that lacrosse thing in Anakin's apartment. Like, what the fuck?
yes.
Who thought that was a good move?
There's two sport scoop based tech props in the background. There's that scoopy thing in the
Yeah,
back. You
yeah.
saw that,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
there's
Like
also a
that real
lacrosse
Earth
racket.
sports equipment.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
like spray painted like silver or something.
Which is a wiffle ball bat. It's like what?
Yeah.
It's like the like scoop things that you throw
Yeah, it's
the
a wiffle ball scoop thing.
Yeah.
And what's funny is one of the deleted scenes, a kid is running around playing with it.
It's the most sci-fi sports toy.
Yeah. The Trade Federation, the Nemoidians, they're only talking to Darth Sidious, but then when Darth Maul comes into the hologram and they're like, you take care of things or whatever, and they shut the thing off, and and the Viceroy's like, this is getting out of hand. No, there are two of them. Like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Did you see two there? I only saw one. Like, it's why? Why do we need this line?
Yeah.
There's kind of like a hit pick while being a nitpick also, but like mostly I like this. Padme, Keira Knightley is being the queen on the ship, and they bring in R2-D2 being like, oh, he saved us. Look, this brave little droid. And Keira Knightley's character is like, Padme, go clean up this droid. She sends the real queen to go clean the droid off. And I'm like, wait, so either this is something that they like arranged ahead of time to
Yeah.
be like, oh, the queen wants to
my
go
God,
meet the
yeah.
droid or whatever, or Keira Knightley is just like power tripping when she gets into the throne. She's just like, I'm gonna make you do
Yeah.
shit.
I can
Oh
see
my
that
God.
it's just like, excuse me for some reason so that I can go and do whatever I want around
Yeah.
the ship.
Yeah.
But also, I really, really like that pet
Yeah.
idea.
The one of my nitpicks is the overactive jiggle physics on Jabba the Hutt.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
they couldn't quite figure out like skin and like muscle displacement,
Mm.
and so like to compensate, they're just like everything's just fucking jiggling on
It's
his
all
skin. It
over
made me
the place.
really uncomfortable.
It's like,
Yeah.
Here's a hit pick. The 21st Century Fox fanfare. John Williams had the presence of mind to make back in the original, make the opening crawl, like the opening fanfare of Star Wars in the same key as the 21st
Yeah.
Century
Oh,
Fox
yeah.
fanfare. So it's just like seamless and It just
Oh,
really
nice.
feels like the 21st Century Fox fanfare is
my
just
God.
part of the
If I ever
song.
make a Star Wars parody, I'm gonna make sure that I like do like not even like a semitone, but like a half semitone down, so it's so like dissonant.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
That's cool.
I hate in the pod race how inconsistent the speeds are, where like someone can like rapidly catch up to them, and it's not even
Yeah.
like they're blocking, but it's just like they just like kind of slow down. Like, is it?
So Anakin catches up at the beginning.
Yeah, it's just like how fast are they going? Like, and like, is there like a draft thing that they're catching up to? And like when Sebulba has his like things that he's gonna like eat the next person with, it's like he speeds up so fast and he slows down so that there's like a drawn out moment. But it's like, why don't you just plow
Hey, man,
through
you
him?
wanted
Yeah.
George Lucas to draw out
Maybe-
this
But
moment.
that's not a dramatic moment because it's a random alien that I don't fucking know.
If I
Yeah.
if I turn on my random Star Wars lore explainer hat, maybe pod racers are so dangerous because they're so fast and your reflexes have to be so quick, right? So maybe the top speed of pod racers is almost unlimited, but you have to decide how fast you want to go to be safe.
Yep.
Maybe that's a thing.
You're right. The movie made that super clear.
I gotta love. Wait, did I already say this? That it's cool how like it's a sport that only force sensitive people can do.
Yeah. I think that is really cool, and I think that it.
The movie has that in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It would have been a really good opportunity for the movie to show us that Anakin had force powers. That's a huge problem with the movie is that there's no showing anything. It's just like this movie, like not only is
Well,
like
they show him saying
beats-
the what's behind the card and stuff,
Yeah, that's fair, but that's like
and he can pod race.
boring.
Yeah.
But the visual storytelling in this movie is so basic.
Yeah.
Where like every scene is just two people looking at each other, standing side by side, or maybe walking if they're feeling spicy, telling people what's going on, and just
Yes.
like exposition to exposition to exposition. There's no blocking in any of the prequel
Yeah.
movies, and like I'll just touch on the point now. I probably won't come back to it in the later movies. Like if you watch this movie with that lens where you're like, okay, what are the characters doing to tell the story with what they're doing? Nothing.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
literally sitting down, looking at each other. They're literally standing side by side, looking at each other. Every shot is a two-shot walking shot or like a shot reverse shot. It's just so fucking basic, and it gets eye-numbingly
Yeah.
like numb.
For a
I just go
franchise
numb.
that's-
I just go numb.
For a franchise that's half about the visuals,
Yeah.
you'd think that they'd show more than tell than they do, and it's a real problem for sure. Speaking of which, actually, what my next nitpick was, not only do they introduce midichlorians in this movie, but the way that they try to explain what they are is to have Anakin walk up, Mr. Qui-Gon, I've been wondering, could we tell the audience real quick what midichlorians are? And then he explains
Well,
it.
Johnny.
And then he explains the whole thing. He's like, they're microscopic organisms, blah, blah, blah. And then Anakin's like, I don't understand. and then I'm like, cool. Well, this is literally only for the audience, you dumb kid. Shut up. Like, thanks for asking.
All right. Well,
I don't get it.
that's been our coverage of the Phantom Menace, everyone.
It has. You're shutting it down, James?
That's it.
You guys wanted this. I take no responsibility.
Yeah.
for
And if
what
the
happened.
audience wants more, y'all better give us lots of views because we don't know. Some of you don't want this series to happen.
Star Trek.
But regardless,
Yeah.
next week we're gonna do In the Heights, a new musical, pretty different for us. You
We haven't done a musical, right?
No.
No, Cats.
Oh, we did Cats. God, I hope this is better.
Go watch Cats.
Yeah,
Our coverage, not the movie.
yeah. That's a good episode. All right, tweet at us at Corporal Critics. Email us hello@corporalcritics.ca. Until then, see you later,
Goodbye,
May the
there.
force be with you.
and also with you.
And you.